There's a flaw in the story right there. So, for the black Hebrew argument, for their argument, you have clear mixing. It's talking about right there. They mixed in with these people, gave their daughters unto their sons, and so on and so forth. So you have this mixture, and it's just like I've been telling you what took place. And look at it on a historical level of what took place when you had, the Europeans coming into these different lands and mixing in with the Africans, which took place. Mixing in with the Arabs, what took place. The Bible was giving you the same story and telling you that it was against God and everything. It wasn't supposed to happen. It's trying to give you what they did and hide it within the story when you begin to understand it. But the Hebrews are looking at it, the black Hebrews are looking at it and trying to piggyback on it and make it fit with where we are today, saying this is exactly what happened. We kept on disobeying, and just like in the Bible we see God send the people to enslave them, he did the same thing to us, which is why we went into slavery with the Arabs and slavery with the transatlantic slave trade. And that, he's supposed to send a deliverer to save us after we cried out, which some of them might actually tell you was Abraham Lincoln. You gotta understand how this stuff is being put. So when you're reading about it in the Bible now, you can get how they got to this point. When you see that these people were stupid, because that's the question you should be asking yourself: what's wrong with these people? Why the hell they keep on disobeying after everything happened for them? I mean, it's only 40 years later. They're still in the memory of the people. It's still written down. They practice and they're supposed to read this stuff every day. So how is it that they keep on sinning after they keep on being delivered? And they know what's going to happen if they sin again. How can they sin again? It doesn't make sense. So I point this out to the Hebrews to show them that Deuteronomy 28, written 1604, 1611, during the time of slavery, was purposely put there to deceive us. Plain and simple, but to also justify to the slave owners, to the people who was basically doing this enslaving, that this was supposed to happen. So if you understand, one, they taught to them back then that this was the case. If you have a Christian civilization, which they try to back out of it now, but it was based on Christianity. If you have a Christian civilization who believe that the Bible is real and that God sent them in to basically conquer us, that this was supposed to be, then, they're going to do it. And that's what it was. And then again, as I said, when you read the slave narratives, this is exactly what they say. I showed you from the Time magazine, who did the whole article on the slave masters using the Bible to justify slavery, but they was clearly not trying to point out the whole black Hebrew thing, because they don't want to go that route. That can't be known mainstream. That's for people to read and figure out themselves. But that's clearly what they was going off of as far as the part of us being cursed. Now, of course, these Masonic and these learned slave masters understood that it was all a deception anyway. It's all bullshit. But if you can get the Africans to believe it, if you can tell them that story and get them to believe that they are somehow chosen people and this is what God has supposed to be has done to them because they disobey, and everything will be fine later on. Now, if you can get them to believe that, which we obviously did, it would get us to be more calm, more accepting of our enslavement rather than fight them at every twist and turn. The Bible was used in many different ways throughout, many different centuries to appeal to people in different ways. It's, again, all about how the book is taught, especially when you have a people you're teaching it to that can't even read the damn book, plain and simple. And then if you get one, because they always had that one who they had preach, taught them little bits about the Bible and taught them how to basically teach it to the people. And if you got that one person who they trusted, teach them and tell them that this is the case, then of course you had people believe in it. You got to look at those pictures. You got to look at the fact that you had people in church during the time of slavery teaching the Bible to slaves. I mean, what was they telling them? What was the story? How do you get a people to believe in a God that's supposed to be good or what have you, yet they are enslaved? You have to come up with an alternative story to tell them. And that's exactly what they did with the book. It's not a coincidence that you have slavery in the Bible attached. Plain and simple. Right around the time when slavery is big, you have this book come out, the King James Version, which has a totally different Deuteronomy than all the other ones that's pertaining to slavery. That is not a coincidence. I don't understand how the Hebrews is looking at it as such, as it being true. It's not a coincidence. But if you're looking at the whole story and you're going through Deuteronomy and then you get to Judges and you see what's taking place and them constantly disobeying and so on and so forth, you will eventually come to that understanding, because they probably stopped at Judges. Who knows? You probably come to understanding because you'll have a lot of Hebrews point out stuff that took place in Judges, and they'll give you the verses and they'll say, see, this is what happened. We kept disobeying. So you talking about this time. We're only in the 7th book. You got a whole bunch more books to go. So we're talking about the Hebrews disobeying, and during this time frame, we talking about BCE still. Yeah, it took, how many years? Over 1,000 years for God to finally say, okay, I had enough. It's been 1,000 years of y'all disobeying me. Y'all ain't never gonna get right. I'm gonna throw y'all enslaved for 400 years or what have you. Not the 40 years. Throw y'all enslaved with the Arabs for 1,200 years or what have you. And the transatlantic slave trade, it doesn't fit. So you got to put things where they fit and understand, this stuff is completely out of place, and it don't make sense for a people to have these kinds of blessings, that kind of success under this God, and then disobey. It don't make sense. It don't make sense for a people to do that. It's just crazy. So we know, as we talked about before, you have the Hebrews living with the Canaanites and the Perizzites and all these people they're supposed to have killed, and you have now Sisera, who was the commander of the Canaanite army, oppressing the Hebrews, and you have Deborah and Jael basically come and be the judge and deliverer in this instance. And what happens is Jael basically goes into the tent and takes one of the tent nails and basically hammers it into the temple of Sisera, the commander of the Canaanite army, kills them, and they basically end up freeing the Hebrews this time. So now it says, this is Judges 5:31. So let all thy enemies perish, O Lord, but let them that love him be as the sun when it goeth forth in his might. And the land had rest 40 years. Now, chapter 6 starts off. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. Again. Here we go. So after they delivered, 40 more years passed, here they go, being evil again. So did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian 7 years. And the hand of Midian prevailed against Israel, and because of the Midianites, the children of Israel made them the dens which are in the mountains and caves and strongholds. And it was so, when Israel had sown, that the Midianites came up, and the Amalekites, and the children of the east, even they come up against them. And they encamped against them, and destroyed the increase of the earth, till thou come unto Gaza, and left no sustenance for Israel, neither sheep, nor ox, nor ass. For they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers for multitude. For both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord. So now, this time, you have Gideon, who's basically the judge and deliverer of Israel. So basically, long story short, you have the Israelites basically play this music and cause the Midianites to basically turn on each other and start killing each other. So this is basically how they come out of this captivity from Gideon. So now they would eventually become free, and it says here, Judges 8:27, and Gideon made a ephod, which is basically like a priestly robe, thereof, and put it in his city, even in Ophrah, and all Israel went thither a whoring after it, which thing become a snare unto Gideon and to his house. Thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more. And the country was in quietness 40 years in the days of Gideon. And Jerubbaal, which is another name for Gideon, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. They start calling him that because he basically was delivering the people from the hands of Baal. So Jerubbaal is Gideon because he saved people from worshiping Baal. And Gideon had 70 sons of his body begotten, for he had many wives. And his concubine that was in Shechem She also bare him a son, whose name he called Abimelech. And Gideon the son of Joash died in a good old age, and was buried in the sepulchre of Joash his father, and Ophrah of the Abezerites. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a whoring after Baal. Baal-in. It's Baals. It's all Baal. And made Baal Beerith their god. And this is Baal Berith. And the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out of the hands of all their enemies on every side. Neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, who is namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel. And again, different times back then. But I look at different civilizations and the stuff that they did, the paths they took. Common sense paths, you might as well say. Don't do this, don't go here, stick with your people, invade this territory, leave these people alone. Common sense stuff we see throughout real history. It doesn't make sense. It just don't fit. And it's the part that they need you to believe that this stuff took place. It don't make sense to have people who clearly getting some divine help, who have clearly, you've been killed and enslaved and so on and so forth. Why in the world would you continue to keep on disobeying this God who clearly has the power to put you in bondage and take you out? What's going on? So the story, again, is all over the place. It's weird that we keep seeing these people continuously disobey when they have everything right in front of them. What is the purpose of life? What's the point? If, you have a God giving you everything, it's going to give you a good life and give you, land and everything you could possibly want in life right there in front of you. All you got to do is obey, these commandments. If you don't, you're going to end up being killed anyway. It don't make sense for them to keep sinning over and over again, and it's going to keep happening. So now understand, you have Abimelech, son of Gideon, who was a good judge. Abimelech, his son, is basically ruling over Israel, but he's a tyrant. He's evil. He's doing a bunch of crazy stuff, disobeying the laws or what have you, and it's a lot that's going on. So now when we read in Judges, this is Judges 9:22, it says, when Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, and I want you to take note of Judges 9:23, write it down, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dwelt treacherously with Abimelech, that the cruelty done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal, which is Gideon, might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. So then, the question would be, again, when people keep telling you about this all good, great God or what have you, again, clearly, these are people who have not read the book. Now, you can point out in that verse right there, God sending evil spirit. What is God doing sending evil spirits? And you're going to get all kinds of crazy answers and justifications from Christians that try to make this work. But the devil is about evil spirits. What is God doing possessing or being able to command evil spirits if he's supposed to be God the good? And you got to get this out of people's head who got this whole notion that God is just good and fairy tales and lollipops and, daisies or what have you, and just only good, and Satan is just all the bad. When you see clearly in the Bible on multiple occasions, which there'll be more we'll get into, that God is sending evil spirits. God is doing evil things.